Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode. I'm Justin Leopard with Consordini.com, and today I have another cello lesson for you. Today's lesson, I want to delve a little bit deeper into intonation concepts. What actually is intonation? How do we do it in a way that's more defined than just saying, ooh, that's bad intonation, or not? And what can we do now as beginning students to be able to have a handle on this notoriously tricky concept? So first of all, I want to start the video by saying that we won't actually go to the lengths of what is possible to know about intonation in this video. Intonation is probably one of the craziest concepts in music when you start talking about all of the implications of the harmonic series and about different tuning systems. So just so you know going into it, it's a massively difficult topic beyond just a right or wrong, yes or no, is something in tune or not. So the first intonation concept I want to talk about is the one that you hear in pop music today. It's what you hear when a piano plays, and that's called equal temperament. And equal temperament is a sort of artificially designed system of tuning where when you play in different keys, it'll sound equally in tune / equally out of tune, we'll get to that in a second, to any other key. So this has become the preferred tuning method in Western music so that pianos can play in different keys. It's led to the creation of larger ensembles that can play together and still sound in tune, jazz harmony that gets really insane upper extensions on their chords that wouldn't really be possible to tune. Basically, it's just made modern music possible. So it's certainly a great thing that's not going away anytime soon. But what does it lack? So when you're actually playing in tune to resonances, that is to say, if you were to look at the waveforms of the music and how they're lining up, all the way back in ancient Greek times, they had identified the ratios between certain consonant notes and realized that when you play up an octave, you're literally producing a waveform that's twice as fast. It's a 2-to-1 relationship, and the most simple relationship, 2-1, simple numbers. If you go up and you go 3-2, for example, that's a fifth. 4-3 is a third. But there's problems that arise when you use this mathematically perfect tuning system. What happens is that fifths end up being a little bit flat. So if you go around to all the 12 keys and you're tuning to perfect fifths, by the time you get back around, you're like 24 cents too flat. And that's definitely doesn't sound in tune. So right off the bat, you know that there's a limitation there. Back in the day, people used to use various what are called just intonation sections. And no, that's not my name, just intonation. Just intonation is just where you tune it to the purposes of the piece. If you're primarily playing a keyboard in C or G or whatever it is, you can make that key sound pretty in tune, although you're still going to run into problems. So what does this mean, these two different kind of tuning approaches? What do they mean for how to play in tune on the cello? Well, I want to give you a couple of real-life examples on the cello to show you how sometimes we actually have to play slightly differently in tune depending on context. And that would really be the theme of this lesson as far as intonation goes, is just familiarizing you with the most basic intonation concepts that you will actually find in your day-to-day life as a cellist playing in orchestra. So the first example that I want to use for you is in showing how one note as part of two different chords can be tuned wildly differently. So if you're playing, for example, a rolled C major chord, then in order for this to be in tune, the relationship between the C, which is the main note or the tonic of the chord that we're playing, and the E, which is the third, is that the E is going to be a little bit flat compared to what it would be for others. And this is just because we're getting that 4-3 relationship. And when you do the 4-3 relationship in a way where it rings consonantly together, as opposed to if I were a little bit off, it doesn't just sound out of tune. You can actually hear that the sound isn't as stable, that there's maybe even a little bit of wolfing or wonking. And I talked about this in my other video about how to tune the fifths and listening for this pure resonance. Well, here's a great example of where you might have to do something different in different contexts. If you're playing in an orchestra, again, tuning by pure fifths might not actually get you what you're looking for. You're going to end up a little too flat. So you kind of have to tune your strings up a little bit sharper to be more, so that your open C is going to match C elsewhere in the orchestra. So continuing on with the C major thing, what would happen if I then took the same E that's in tune to C major and tried to play it with my open A string? Definitely sounds in tune. All right, that's the E, and now I'm going to play with my open A string. Not just out of tune, but like badly out of tune. Like people would think that I made a mistake if I were playing that. In order to get those two notes to be in tune to each other, you have to tune it based off their own perfect fourth relationship, or if you were to invert it, the perfect fifth relationship. Remember what we said about perfect fifths being a little flat? Well, perfect fourths have to be a little bit sharp, so that means that when you get the E that matches the A, it's much sharper than the one for the C. So you can actually watch my finger move in order for both of those to be in tune. So this means that basically there are two types of intonation that are practical for you practicing cello, and they are melodic intonation versus harmonic intonation. So what we were just doing was an example of harmonic intonation because we're tuning vertically. So horizontal is time and vertical is the pitches that you're playing. So we're tuning vertically. We're only caring about this one moment in time where we're playing this one chord. And thinking this way vertically or harmonically doesn't have to just be with your own instrument. If you're playing with another instrument, it's valuable to be in tune to them. Now, the other type of intonation is melodic intonation, and this is the one where there's going to be more of the push and pull with the harmonies that are kind of implied by the scale that you're playing. So most notably, what it's going to mean is a slightly sharp third, a slightly sharp seventh. I'll show you what I mean. If we're playing a G major scale, then in order that every one of those notes has a certain tendency, and it might seem a bit weird at this stage if you're early to music, but perhaps less so. Perhaps you really do understand. The first G is going to feel most like home, whereas the next note is like a little bit of a lift and a question from home. The next note, being part of the chord, actually, although it still sounds anticipatory, feels a little bit more centered than that second note. Going on and on and up, when we get to the leading tone of the scale, which is to say the seventh, or in this case F sharp, because we're in G major, then it kind of helps to play that a little bit sharp so that you really feel how much it's trying to tend towards G. But to show you why that might not be in tune in a harmonic context, depending, I'll play it down here so I can be playing with open strings so you'll be able to hear. So in this case, I'm sort of treating it as thinking of the chords as being da 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 da. And in this case, if I want to tune all of the final notes of the chord to the D, so these final two notes, that's in tune as the third, and that's in tune as the fourth. Both sound in tune. Now I'm not moving my hands. Let me play the exact two notes without the D reference. Do you have the F sharp sounds a little bit flat? What we might want to hear in that case is, but if we did that, now that doesn't sound too horrible, but it is sharp. The F sharp is sharp compared to the D. So what does this mean, that the same note can be in tune in one context and out of tune in another? Well, for one, it means that it's okay to move around a little bit. It's okay to realize that part of the beauty of this instrument is that it's not just put your finger in this place and get this note and it's in tune, end of story. The reality is that pianists and guitar players, and you can really hear this in recordings when you listen closely, are actually always a little out of tune. And it can start to bug you if you're a cellist and you're used to working on playing in tune, and you listen to these guitar players like, does nobody else notice this out of tune? Well, it is out of tune. That's by design. It's by design. It's a compromise. It's equally out of tune to being in tune. But when we play these instruments, we can find in tune, and it can shift a little bit. If the chord changes, you might have to shift. If something's changing around you, but you're staying the same, you might still have to shift. This is why sometimes you do find enharmonic equivalents in music, where it's important to a composer to write a C flat instead of a B natural, even though everyone's like, why don't you just write B natural? Well, I mean, theoretically, it's a different note slightly, like actually literally slightly. It's only on a piano that they're all exactly the same notes. So I know that this was a lot. This is a big topic, intonation. Like I said, it goes way deeper than what we've talked about, but I want you to be aware of these two ideas: that you can play melodically in tune, which is going to take precedence when you are the melody, or you can play harmonically in tune, which is going to take precedence when you're doing more of the harmony, and you can listen horizontally versus vertically, to be able to try to develop an intuitive sense of keeping the structure of the intonation intact, as it were. If you imagine the vibrations of the notes playing as you're going along, you want those to kind of link up as a grid because they're aligned with each other as much as possible, and balancing out everything and realizing that there's oftentimes compromise in this when you're playing with different types of groups, or you're playing just in the same song but in different places. So keep your mind open, keep listening, try to do some of these games on your own time. It counts as practice because you're getting to know your instrument. And let me know if you need anything else, if you have any questions about intonation. It's certainly a crazy difficult topic, and I'm here to help. So once again, I'm Justin Leopard with Consordini.com. We really appreciate having you guys with us, watching our videos, and we'll see you next time.